Hey Optimancers, Chris here. So I will get back to my racial tier rankings very soon, but I do want to take a little bit of time to talk about the Gauntlet. Back at the start of March, I was contacted by Mike from CMCC Builds about participating in a channel series where character builds are tested in a Gauntlet. The idea is the build is taken through a Gauntlet-style adventure, then a video is made that cuts down the time of a 2 to 3 hour combat into a digestible 15 to 20 minute video so viewers don't have to sit through all the drag of a live stream game. If you've watched live streams of D&D before, you know what I'm talking about. I was told there would be several combats, and somewhere in the middle there would be a short rest. Sounded like fun to me, so I was given the task of a build for 6th, 10th, 14th, or 18th level, my choice. That build would be accompanied by 2 equivalent level sidekick characters that were pre-generated. Official D&D content was to be used only, with no Strixhaven, Dragonlance, or Ravnica stuff. So I'm going to link the first video of my Gauntlet run in the video description. Mike has also put a link to my character sheet in his video. I think it's pretty entertaining, so please check it out, comment, like, all that stuff. You can do that after watching this video, or if you want to go now, by all means, but come back and watch the rest of this video where I'm going to be going over the build. What I want to do in this video is discuss what build I came up with and how it works. So I started to go through some of my existing builds. I originally thought it might be an opportunity to showcase the Dread Necromancer. Now this build I've played multiple times and it's always worked well for me, but then again, I played it in groups that provided some protection to the mage and the summoned undead. 2 sidekicks doesn't seem very resilient. There's also one bit of rules interaction with that build that might get some pushback because it relies on using the Undead Thralls feature to boost the Summon Undead spell. But I got a number of comments on that video from viewers that felt a summon spell shouldn't qualify as creating an undead. So then I thought more about working with 2 sidekick characters that weren't going to be very potent, and I thought my character better have a good defense. Well, the Eternal Cockroach build is my iconic defense first build. The build combines strong armor class and saving throws and U-on-T defenses for a solid defensive package. I knew that if I went with the Cockroach, it would need some updating because it used the old U-on-T, which is now legacy content. Now the newer U-on-T is still strong, but not strong the way it used to be. The old Cockroach also was a way to make the less than ideal ability score bonuses both useful, but since Tasha's, that's a non-issue. My main concern about the Cockroach though was the Cockroach can deliver some damage, but it's resource heavy, and delivering consistent damage in 6 extended combats, it's just a non-starter. And again, the sidekicks just aren't going to be contributing much to damage either. So I decided instead to make a build specifically for the Gauntlet. This build needed to be more balanced between offense and defense, capable of outlasting what could be close to 100 rounds of combat with 1 short rest. So the 14th level build I came up with doesn't really explore anything I haven't covered in this channel before, but it is a new build, and I figured it'd be worthy of a video. The idea was to have a character with a good armor class, good saving throws, and able to deliver damage consistently over long durations. For saving throws, you want 6 levels of Paladin with a strong charisma, so that's where I started. Then I wanted Spirit Guardians. That's my long duration consistent damage spell. There are 2 ways this could be done, either multiclassing or Oath of the Crown Paladin. Multiclassing with full spellcaster is the stronger option because of spell slot progression, and with Spirit Guardians, I want to be able to upcast as much as possible. So at least 5 levels of Divine Sorcerer was the obvious play, because with a Paladin, a Cleric multiclass with Wisdom requirements, it's just too difficult. Then to maximize the effectiveness of Spirit Guardians, I always want to pull creatures into the Spirit Guardians on my turn to get that second instance of damage. That means 2 levels of Warlock with Grasp of Adar for Eldritch Blast. That will pull any enemy up to 10 feet with no saving throw or size restriction. And so with 6 levels of Paladin, 5 levels of Sorcerer, 2 levels of Warlock, that left me with a 13th level character. When figuring out spellcasting progression for a multi-class character, we use half the Paladin levels and all the full spellcasting levels. The Warlock levels don't add to this. They're handled separately. So 3 from Paladin and 5 from Sorcerer puts me right here, with a maximum spell slot level of 4. So as much as I would love a 7th level Paladin subclass feature, that 6th level of Sorcerer is a must-have. That puts me here, with that 5th level spell slot, With Spirit Guardians, that's 5d8 damage. If I can make that happen twice on a round, that's 10d8 before we add Eldritch Blast damage. So now I needed to determine subclass for my Paladin and Warlock levels. I'd been told the big bad of the Gauntlet is a Mind Flayer Arcanist. That means I should expect a DC 15 Intelligence saving throw against Mind Blast. I also have to dump Intelligence, so even with a Paladin aura, that's going to be like a +4. That's like a 50-50 chance of making that save. And the sidekicks were going to be in the same boat, if they were in my Paladin aura. Otherwise, they likely wouldn't save. Now, I have Favor to the Gods, assuming I have it available, and that will improve the odds. But even then, it's like 1 in 4, and it's over. So, Watcher's Paladin is the way to go. If I save the Channel Divinity, Watcher's Will would provide my character and the sidekicks advantage on all Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma saving throws for a minute, which should be enough to take out a Mind Flayer. +4 with advantage, and a 2d4 available for an unlucky roll seems pretty solid to me. With Warlock, I decided on the Genie Warlock with the Tao Patron. This allows my character to add some bludgeoning damage to one of my Eldritch Blasts. And with the Crusher feat, that means I can pull 2 creatures into Spirit Guardians on my turn, and that's twice the damage. If I could fit the Telekinetic feat as well, that's 3 creatures. Custom Lineage, it's the right play here. It's not as interesting, I wanted to do something else, but it's the right play. Dark Vision seems like a really good idea, the +2 for Charisma, and the Crusher feat can be taken as a racial feature at first level. That's going to provide a +1 Constitution, the Force Movement, and with a critical hit, provide advantage on attack rolls against the target. Now, here's the thing. I did the Gauntlet run, and I'm trying to remember if I ever applied this part of the feature, and I don't think I did. And I don't remember if it's because I never scored a critical hit. I might not have. But if I did score critical hits, then I forgot about it, and I guess that happens sometimes. Nevertheless, Crusher was big here, so Crusher was the right move, Custom Lineage was the right move. For ability scores, 13 Strength is required to multiclass with Paladin. A 14 Dexterity would be needed to get the most out of medium armor. I considered just using heavy armor and taking the movement penalty, but that doesn't just mean I would have a low movement speed because of the strength requirements, but it would also mean a lower initiative and dexterity saving throws, so 14 seemed like the right move. 13 Constitution would be 14 after the Crusher feat, then 15 Charisma, +2 from Custom Lineage brought it to a 17, and I definitely want to get that up to 20. That left me 1 point left, so Intelligence 8, Wisdom 9. Now normally I worry about the level by level progression because I want to be good at 2nd level and 3rd level and 4th level all the way up to 14th level. Here I didn't worry about it too much because essentially what I'm doing here is a level 14 one-shot. But Sorcerer first for the Constitution saving throw proficiency must have. This character relies on keeping Spirit Guardians up, and that means I want at least a +9 modifier. So when I make a concentration saving throw against damage, that's usually a base 10, that's an automatic success. Without proficiency, it would have been +7, and that's no good. With proficiency, it's +12, that does it. 6 levels of Sorcerer means 6 sorcery points and 2 metamagic options. I went for Quicken Spell and Subtle Spell. Quicken Spell is 2, Subtle Spell is 1. Here were my thoughts. So Subtle Spell can be useful if for some reason you can't do verbal components. And it did come up in the Gauntlet, it was a good thing I had it. Quicken Spell I figured is good for putting up defenses. So like if you have Mirror Image, you can quicken your Mirror Image, then you can still cast Eldritch Blast because it's a cantrip, and pull creatures into Spirit Guardians and do Eldritch Blast damage. And that seemed good, and I did use that as well. However, there was something about the Gauntlet I didn't know, and that made Quicken Spell the wrong pick.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong.
So remember when I was talking about the entire plan for this character, which was to cast Spirit Guardians, and because it has a long duration, I'd be able to have it just do consistent damage through the Gauntlet? Well, guess what? After the first combat, we had gone, I'd say, probably 2 minutes of game time, maybe 3 minutes, and I said, oh, I should have lots of time left on my Spirit Guardian, so I'm going to rush to the next combat. And I was told, no, you can't. There's 10 minutes between every combat. Doesn't really matter what you do in between, 10 minutes. That's the duration of Spirit Guardians, meaning I would only be getting 1 Spirit Guardians per combat. That means for every single combat, I would need to recast it. Now, I'd already used a lot of my lower level slots after the first combat, and now, basically, I didn't have my higher level slots either because I was going to need to constantly recast Spirit Guardians. Also meant I wasn't going to have the high level Spirit Guardians as much as I had hoped, and it all could have been solved, or at least partially solved, with Extend Spell Meta Magic. Because if I had had Extend Spell Meta Magic, then I have that extra 10 minutes duration, and I could have gotten 2 combats out of every Spirit Guardians. And that ended up being a huge problem. But anyway, whenever you're making a build, there are always going to be situations that you didn't count on. And this was one of them. And let's just move on with the build. Telekinetic would give me that third opportunity to pull an enemy into Spirit Guardians on my turn. My Charisma is now an 18, just need 2 more. For Sorcerer spell selections, the important ones are Shield, Absorb Elements, Mirror Image, Misty Step, Counterspell, Revivify, and Spirit Guardians. Yeah, that's all of them. I mean, not the cantrips. The cantrips weren't important, and I didn't end up casting any of them. Spirit Guardians, of course, is the main play, but I figured Revivify might come in handy considering the sidekicks are less than resilient. Counterspell for that Mind Flayer, Arcanist, Wall of Force spells, or any other spells that were going to be big problem spells. Misty Step to get out of tough situations, maybe a Wall of Force. And then Mirror Image was my play for Quicken Spell. It doesn't use concentration, so I can have it up with Spirit Guardians, and then I can combine it with an Eldritch Blast, so I can do the Mirror Image, then I can do the Eldritch Blast and pull the creatures in. Shield and Absorb Elements are standard defenses. Up next, Paladin. With 6 levels, that's 30 points in Lay on Hands, which can be used to restore hit points, as well as remove poison or disease. The fighting style was an easy call. Defense for +1 armor class. This character doesn't use weapons at all. That means Divine Smite is never going to be used either. Just as well, turns out I would never have had the spell slots to smite anyways. The old spells would be Alarm, Detect Magic, Moonbeam, and See Invisibility. None of those came up, though I almost needed See Invisibility, and I'm going to leave that a little bit mysterious for now. Channel Divinity was for Watcher's Will, as previously discussed. I was told I would get a short rest at some point, so I figured that'd be 1 spell slot recovery as well. For ability score improvement, I would have loved Lucky or Alert, but I had to get that Charisma score up to 20, and then that's it for ASIs. Extra Attack was of no use to me, and Aura Protection. I got my Charisma up to 20, so that's a +5 for me and my allies if I keep them in close. Grabbed a number of spells here I thought I might use. Turns out the only Paladin spell I cast was Find Steed. Control Mount really helps with this strategy because then the Mount can disengage, pull me out of melee, where I can pull enemies back into the Spirit Guardians. And in our first session, the Mount wasn't all that effective. It was pretty good over the first couple rounds, but then it died. And so I didn't have the Mount for the rest of the combat. So it wasn't really a case where it was apparent how effective the Mount was. But we ended up playing 3 times. And in the second session, the Mount was extremely effective. And so when we got into the third section, the DM, I'd go into a combat, and suddenly all the enemies are like swarming my Mount and going after my Mount alone. It just ignoring me, ignoring the sidekicks. Kill the Mount first. So that's how effective the Mount becomes. I definitely considered Aid as a method of boosting my Mount's hit points, but as it turns out, I just didn't have the spell slots. Finally, 2 levels of Warlock. Bottled Respite really wasn't going to work for me in this scenario, but Genie's Wrath gave me that important +5 bludgeoning damage on my first Eldritch Blast hit, which allows the Crusher feat to pull in enemies. With Invocations, I knew that Grasp of Vidar would be one of them. With a second, I went back and forth between Repelling Blast and Agonizing Blast. Ended up with Agonizing Blast, which turns out to have been the right call. I ended up relying on Eldritch Blast for damage way more than I thought I would, and there's maybe a couple points in the whole gauntlet where Repelling Blast would have made much difference. Moving away and then pulling in, that was the play. And Eldritch Blast. And I did cast both Sanctuary and Armor of Agathis, as it turns out. I was given 1 magic item, which wasn't set. I was told it should be a +1 item based on the archetype of the character. I took a +1 Rod of the Packkeeper. That's +1 to Eldritch Blast and Warlock spell-based saving throws, which maybe came up once. This was a Sorcerer spell build, but as I've talked about on this channel before, if you work out the math, a +1 difference in DC for Spirit Guardians damage is all but irrelevant. I didn't even bother putting a weapon on the character at all. Half plate, plate barding for the Mount, a shield, and a Rod of the Packkeeper were the main items. So, 100 hit points, 20 armor class, solid saving throws with the Favorite of the Gods pack up. solid Eldritch Blast, Spirit Guardians with up to a 5th level slot for casting, and a couple reserve 4th level slots as needed. I figured I would start with the 4th level Spirit Guardians, then use a 5th level slot closer to the final fight. After sharing the build with Mark, he assigned the Kenku Expert and the Orc Warrior sidekicks. And they are not great. The Kenku has 1 short bow attack, but it can do a 30-foot help action. The Warrior had 2 attacks, but they're not great attacks. Though, I guess they're better than nothing, kind of. But compared to any kind of character build, they're pretty weak. For a character concept, I decided to give my character a cosmic theme. He would be Quasar. Like Quasar, a luminous active galactic nucleus. They're the most luminous, powerful, and energetic objects in the universe. They emit massive gravity forces, pulling stellar objects in where they're sucked into the destructive radiant mass. Might ask what my Spirit Guardians would look like? Looks like this. Now, scheduling took us a while, but we eventually got it worked out, and Quasar has attempted the Gauntlet. A 25-minute video is up on CMCC Builds right now. It is linked in the video description, and I will be posting a reaction to it. I want to give a player perspective of where the build worked, where it didn't work, things that I think I did well or screwed up, as well as unexpected stuff that happened behind the scenes, which in some cases was a source of frustration. I won't spoil anything else here. I'll go into detail in my reaction video. Otherwise, until next time, I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.